Welcome back to C++ tutorial on Tute Fulcrum. This session is on the types of inheritance in C++. So in our previous sessions, we discussed in detail what inheritance is and what is the significance of using the property inheritance in programming. So let's continue our discussion with the types of inheritance available in C++ programming language. So let's begin. There are 5 types of inheritance in C++. Single inheritance, multi-level, hierarchical, multiple, and hybrid inheritance. In this session, we'll be discussing about the single inheritance in C++. In single inheritance, a class is allowed to inherit from only one class. That is, there will be only one base class and one derived class. The base class can give only one child class. Let's take an example to understand this. Say we have a parent class student and this has the method personal details. So this is just like the example we spoke in the previous session when we talked about the need of inheritance. So all the basic functionalities it is desired to be put as a part of the base class or the parent class. All the extra functions you can put it as a part of the derived class so that you could avoid the repetitions of the methods. It's just the same what we spoke in the previous video. So here what we are going to do here is the base class student is deriving the child class high school, and what the expected output is shown on the right. It is expected to give the details like the name, age, ID and the total marks of the student. So the total marks that is computed within the derived class. So let's see how we are going to implement this in the C++ programming language. So let's create a class student. So this is our parent class. I'm going to add the members of this class. So let me keep them as protected. So this is going to hold the personal details of a student. So let's take character array to hold the name. Let me give a size as 50. Then it should have age. I'm taking it as an integer entity, and also it has the ID of the student. So both these are going to be integer entities. Now let me add few public members also, and this is going to be the member functions of class student. So let me first call a set function that is enabling the user to enter the name, age and ID of the student. So let me implement this like this. So return type of the function is void, then set student details. So when I invoke this function, it should be able to read the name, age and ID of the student. So let's use the cin statement to read these entities. So I have used the cout statement here just to alert the user to enter the name of the student. So then after that, using the cin statement, I'm going to read the name. So cin name. I'm going to repeat this for the entities age and ID. So alright, we are done with the function set student details, which is enabling the user to read the details of the student like the name, age and ID. I'm going to add one more method here, which is displaying these details like as shown in the output, like name, age and ID. So whatever the details that is read from the user is required to be displayed. So that method I'm going to add now. So void, let's call it as display student. So how do you display something? Making use of the cout statement. So let's say cout name. Next line, we will print age. So I have taken only few details. You could add more like gender, contact number, etc. Next line will display the ID. Alright, so done with the display student method also. So this is your base class. So the parent class or the base class or the super class, whatever name you want, you can call. So that's student and it has the members name, age, ID. All these are protected entities, and then we have few public methods or functions which is set student details, which is reading the values of name, age and ID, and the display student function, that is displaying the values of the same. Now let's go ahead with the child class. So how do we create the child class? Class, the name is high school. Use the colon operator, specify the mode in which you are going to inherit. So let's use the public mode, and then we have to specify the parent class name. So that is student. Now you can start adding the members of the child class. So let me keep all the entities public here. Now what are the members of your child class? First, we need to take the mark details. So for time being, let's take the marks of 3 subjects. So you need to have a variable to hold the same. So let's use the array concept here, and let's take an array to hold these values. So since it's marks, let's take it as an integer entity. So int sub 3. This is going to hold the subject marks details. Now let's start adding the functions. So let's first add a function to read the marks of the 3 subjects. So let's say read marks. So here we have 3 subjects and these are handled as an array. So we will require a loop to iterate through the same. So let's make use of a for loop here. So let's say I as an iterating variable. So you need to declare the same. So let's start using the for loop. For I equal to 0, I less than 3. You need to iterate it 3 times because we have 3 subjects here. I plus plus. Now within this for loop, we will use a cin statement to read the marks. So before that, let's use a print statement here, that is cout statement here, to alert the user to enter the marks of the subject. Enter marks of 3 subjects. Right. Now within this for loop, we will use the cin statement. Cin, we will say sub of I. So in the first iteration, it's going to read to the location sub of 0. That is the first entry to the subject. Then sub of 1, sub of 2. After that, in the next iteration, the loop will be terminated. So now, after this, we need to display, or we need to compute the total marks of the subjects. So how do we do that? Let's add a function here. Void, let's say total marks. So again, this is requiring a for loop. So I have used an iterating variable I here. So let me declare the same. Now we need to find the sum, right? So let's use a variable sum and let's initialize this with a value of 0, because for the first addition you want to retain the mark of the first subject. For this purpose I have used a variable sum which is holding an initial value of 0. Now let's use a for loop here. So I equal to 0, I less than 3, because we have 3 subjects, I plus plus. Now what is this for loop doing? Within this for loop we will write sum is equal to sum plus sub of I. Right? Now after performing this, we are going to print the value of sum. So total marks equal to sum. So if you doesn't want so this is the total marks function that is displaying the total marks of 3 subjects. Now what was our output? Along with this total marks we need to display the personal details also. So what I'm going to do here is, within this total marks function I'm going to invoke the method that is displaying the details of the student. So I'm going to call this function within this total marks function. So I will be able to do this because I have inherited the child class from the parent class student. Right? So before displaying this total marks, I am going to invoke the function that is displaying the details of the student. So what was the function name? Display student. So I am going to call that here. Display student. So if you call the total marks function, what is happening here? So within this part, it is computing the total marks of the 3 subjects. Now first it will display the student details. That is, it will give you the output like name, age, ID. After that it is going to print the sum. So that is what exactly we want as our output. Now we have done with the base class and the child class. Now we need to instantiate this by creating an object. So that we are going to do within the main function. So as discussed in the previous video, we are going to create the child object to the child class. So our child class is what? High school, right? High school. Let me call the object as obj. Right? This is our child class. So I have created object to this child class. Now, what is the first thing that I need to do? I need to invoke this function. Without invoking this function, if I call the display student, I'm going to end up with some garbage values. So to avoid that, I need to invoke the set student details. So I can do that with the object of the child class because I have inherited it from the parent class student. So I could say obj dot this function. Set student details. Set student details. So after creating the object, I'm calling the set student details through the object of the child class. So this will enable the user to enter the personal details of the student like name, age and ID. After that, I'm going to invoke the function that is asking the user to enter the subject details. So that is read marks. So I'll say obj dot read marks. So this read marks function is a member of the class high school. So after this we will call the method that is displaying the total marks. So that is, here we have total marks. We'll call total marks. So that's again a method of the child class. So we are done with the code. So let's execute and see how we are getting the output. So there is no error. So it is asking the user to enter the name. So let's give some name, XXX. Then it asks the age of the student. So let's give it as 15. Then the ID of the student. Then enter the marks of 3 subjects. So you can give some marks. So let me give it as 10, 10, 10. After that, you could see here the program works successfully and we are getting the expected output. That is, it is displaying the name of the student, age, ID as given by the user. Along with that, it is computing the total marks of the student. So we have given the marks as 10, 10 and 10. So the sum of the 3, that's 30, is displayed. So this is how we implement single inheritance in C++. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe, and please don't forget to tap the bell icon. You'll get notified whenever we upload a new videos. Thank you.